Hey guys, it's Misopods and more with me. I hope everything's going well with you and you're taking care of yourselves and the ones you love. My kiddos are in the baths and snacking, and I'm about to edit the second video of the two of my American veterans series. So this one is shorter and I don't have video problems, but again, this is a series where I went to a local food pantry for veterans and by veterans and ended up talking with them, and then ended up going back and doing a sit-down interview with two of the veterans there. This is the second with Murph, who I've seen several times, a great gentleman. So I hope you enjoy this, and I hope everything's going well with you and you're taking care of yourselves and the ones you love. It's kind of rainy and gross out there, but I went for a walk today. I hope you got out a little bit too, but go easy and take care of yourselves and the ones you love, and honor the veterans in your life. And so, and I apologize, what was your name one more time?
Pat.
Pat, okay. And I'm Steve, I'm sorry, so.
All right. Yeah, they call me Murph, but that's all right.
Pat or Murph?
Yeah.
You prefer Murph?
Doesn't matter.
Sure.
Everybody here calls me Murph because when I started, there were 4 or 5 other Patricks around, and so I just said Murph, and people didn't know my first name for 2.5 years.
Gotcha. Okay, so are you a Michigan native or?
I am. I grew up in Centerline. I
Oh, okay.
graduated from Warren Lincoln High School down at 9 Mile between Van Dyke and Hoover.
A buddy of mine lived right there off of Ford Street, off of Van Dyke.
Okay.
So I know that area a little bit.
Yeah, I grew up there. A little different now than it was back then, but every place is.
Everything is. Yep.
So, are you recording now?
Yeah.
Okay.
If you, how did you get drafted? Did you get?
No, I did not. The
volunteer?
draft ended, I believe, in 1972.
Okay.
And I graduated from high school in 1974.
Okay.
So I got into the service at the tail end of Vietnam. I joined in September of 74, and Vietnam officially ended in May of 1975.
Okay.
So I did not serve in Vietnam because of that. When I went in, I signed up for 6 years right off the bat.
Yep.
After boot camp, I went to 15 months of service school commands at 3 different bases across the United States.
Okay.
So by the time I went to the fleet, it was January of 76, and I just happened to report to the last U.S. Navy ship that left Vietnam waters in May of 1975, and it was
That's
in
interesting.
dry dock at the time in Pearl Harbor.
Wow. Okay.
So,
See, I've been on, I think, 3 Navy ships with the MEU. So, have you? Are they retired? Have you noticed? I just look back. Like one of the ships I was stationed on and deployed on was retired. Have you had any incidents with that?
I did 3 years in the Pacific Fleet,
Okay.
then a year and a half in Norfolk, Virginia, and both my ships were retired. One was used for target practice. It's at the bottom of the Pacific Ocean. And the other one, I believe, was sold to a foreign country. They buy our old ships and
Yep.
use them for their navies.
I've never thought. How does it feel? The aspect of the ship you're on being, like, is that a mixed kind of like?
Not really. What do you do with an old ship?
Yeah.
You put it in mothballs, and you know what? It still costs your tax dollars probably
Yeah,
$1 million a
maintain
year
and
for
upkeep,
each
yeah.
ship in that mothball. So if they can't sell them to another, like when I went to boot camp, we had an Iranian company in San Diego. That's where I went to boot camp.
Wow.
And that was 1974. The Iranian Navy is the Iranian Navy is one of the countries and navies that would purchase our old World War II ships, and
Oh,
that's
okay.
what they were still taking to sea.
That's interesting.
So, and then if you think about it, in 1980, I was in Norfolk, Virginia, and we were supposed to do a Mediterranean cruise, Instead, there were a bunch of hostages being held in Iran.
Oh yeah.
Well, they said, no, you can go to the Med all right, but you just go straight through the Suez Canal and make a left turn and go in, to the Persian Gulf. And so I spent 5 months, 1 nautical mile back and forth off the coast of Iran.
Jeez, and that's interesting. So so we were I was on Bonhomme. So it was the oh goodness, what was not the Bonhomme Richard? How can I not think of the other ship? The Boxer. Okay. And what year would it have been? Around 2008, where we had the ship go down, a plane go down in Iranian waters.
Okay.
And and this is all interesting to me because it's the aspect of the Navy I've never experienced, really. Mm-hmm. But from what I understand, it's the whole thing where, like, just say Iran says their territorial waters go out 15 miles and the rest of the country says only 10 miles. So there's that gray area. And that's where we were at while we're trying to deal with the guy who was caught. And I remember our ships would go around and taunt almost the Iranian ships.
Oh, yeah.
And that's something I just never would have thought happened. Like you're kind of poke, and we're sending LCACs out, and they're going around their warships, and our destroyers are going around their warships, and it's like, this is kind of interesting. So
right.
The Navy doesn't play around like that. I was very
and in fact, it kind of surprised me. I never thought about it because to me, I've been to the Persian Gulf multiple times, even after I was out of the military. Mm-hmm. The Iranian coastline was in the Persian Gulf, which isn't that wide to begin with. So is it right across the Persian Gulf? You can see both coasts from the ship.
It was this little strip that I remember.
You have Iraq on one side and Iran on the other. Yep. Whose territorial waters are those?
And that was what we were dancing with. I thought that was, again, it's one of those things where, like, it's just, you get one guy on one ship gets antsy on a 50 cal and we start a war. But, nothing happened. We got the
cal. It's funny you mentioned that because I worked in surface-to-air missile systems. Okay. That's what I was trained for. But back then, I was young and dumb, and when we were going to the Persian Gulf, they wanted to train a landing crew, and I volunteered for that. We had to go through another little boot camp with shooting a lot of guns and stuff like that, target practice. And I was elected or asked if I would volunteer to perform. They mounted 4 tripods on our ship. And we had 50 cal machine guns, and I was the gunner for the starboard aft 50 cal. That was my general quarter station for that whole general cruise.
Quarters. See, that was one thing I never for a Marine. My general quarters was go to the berthing.
Okay,
stay out of everybody's way.
No.
So I never got to experience the actual.
Yeah, I had many different general quarter stations throughout my 4.5 years actually stationed on ships.
Okay.
So,
do you have a preference, like a favorite style or even specific ship, like one you're partial to, or whether it's the style, the size? I always think bigger is better, but
the bigger the ship, the less pitch and roll you get when you're at sea, and believe it or not, the bigger ships do have a little bit more horsepower. They can go a little bit faster.
Oh, see, I never would have thought.
Well, especially if they're a nuclear-powered ship because they have unlimited power. Yeah. We were not a nuclear-powered ship.
I've never been on.
You can always tell a U.S. Navy ship whether it's nuke or not because you look at the stacks where the smoke would come out, in this case steam. Nuclear-powered ships are gray all the way to the top. Diesel ships are black the last 10 feet at the top.
I never
because you get black smoke out of there.
Okay, yeah, it makes sense. Yeah, it makes
So that's your dead. You give it away right away.
How many? The only one I know is I think the Reagan. Is that one of the nuclear powered carriers?
It's the very first nuclear powered carrier that we ever built was USS Enterprise.
Really?
Just like the Starship Enterprise. And it was built back in the 1960s.
Wow.
And it is still in commission, stationed in Yokosuka, Japan.
Holy cow, I didn't know it went back that far, and then it was so,
I escorted the Enterprise back when I was in
that's
the 70s.
Awesome. That's wild.
And by the time I got out, there's a whole bunch of, I'm trying to remember the class. Oh, Chester Nimitz. Okay, that's the class of the new nuclear carriers. And when I went to Norfolk, there were a couple of them in commission stationed in Norfolk. So
Not dry out, they were out and about?
They were
Okay.
out and about. They were in the fleet. There are a whole lot more now. I mean, I've
Yeah.
been out since 1980. That's 42 years.
I never even thought about the fact how many nuclear powered carriers we have. The only one I think I know was what I thought was the Reagan. If that was even one.
It's a new one, yeah.
Okay.
That's a Nimitz class.
Okay. And
But
that's the one I could think of off the top
do you
of my
know
head.
how many submarines we have that are non-nuclear?
No.
0.
Oh wow! I didn't. Okay, so we went all. See, that's.
Well, there's
Yeah.
think about it. If you watch the old World War II movies, you have a submarine, and guess what they had to do every night? They had to surface and run the diesel engines to charge their batteries.
I didn't realize how submarine warfare until recently was not all below, like how much of it involves, surface action.
Mm-hmm.
I never thought that. Now that is interesting. The fact that removes that aspect of having to navigate that.
Yeah.
I'd never want to be on a submarine.
They asked me when I went in if I would like to go into the nuclear program, and I said no. And they said, well, why not? Because my test scores were real high. I mean, I completed a lot of advanced placement classes in high school. And in fact, my arithmetic, I finished pre-calculus in 11th grade. So when I went in to take these tests to join the military, they were like,
easy.
who in the hell are you?
Yeah.
But, and they said, well, why don't you want to go in the nuclear program? I said, because the odds that I would have to go on a submarine are about 95%, and I don't want to go in a submarine. So
At least you were informed. Too.
yeah, and so I struck that out, and I went into advanced electronics instead.
Okay.
So
And whereabouts have you gone? Just, I know the Navy gets around a lot more than most of us. So
yeah, I made 2 West Packs, 2 South Packs.
And where do the South? I've been on the West Packs, but I'm only vaguely familiar with East Packs. Where does the South Pack?
South Pack is Australia, New Zealand,
Okay.
below the equator.
See, I'm thinking South America, just ignorant.
No,
Okay,
you know
so
what? There's only 2 continents I haven't been to in my
Antarctica?
lifetime. South America's one, Antarctica's the other.
Yep.
So that's the West Coast trips. I mean, I've been to a lot of places. I mean,
The West Packs are phenomenal.
West Packs were normally 6 to 7 months, and then the South Pack, you would extend your West Pack, and then you would head south for a couple months.
I think I don't even know now. I'm ignorant because I only look at it from the Marine Corps side. I don't know if they do the South Packs anymore. Sorry about that. Because our West Packs go to Australia now. Because I've been to Australia twice.
When if you're going to go down south, then they call it a South Pack, and they add it on to the end of a West Pack.
Gotcha. Okay, and that's
That's
part
the
I
way
probably
we did
missed
it then.
being on the Marine side of it. Then okay.
Right. Then the other aspect, if you go north of the Arctic Circle, they call that blue nosing. And I did that in the Atlantic Ocean in like September, October time frame of 1979. And then you go to med cruises. In my case, I went
And that's
through
what
the
we call
med.
East Packs now, I think.
The only place we stopped, except for Bahrain, which is in the Persian Gulf,
I've been
was
there.
on the way back. They gave us a week in Israel.
How was Israel? I've never been there.
It was decent. It was much smaller than you imagine. Like the wide River Jordan's about the width of this conference room. And the Golan Heights, you just look up there. It's just like a big old wheat field. And
Okay.
the other side of that, I think you're into Egypt. They got a meeting here in 15 minutes.
Yes, I know they wanted to kick me out around too. So,
Yeah. I mean, I went all over. I went to Bethlehem. I did the whole time there. I had to stay on duty 1 or 2 days, and the rest of the time I just toured.
Okay.
But the thing that was different about
Did you
going
need
there,
us to move or?
Yeah, go ahead.
You're fine. You're not in our way at all. Sorry. And if you need anything, let me know.
The thing that
Thank
stood
you.
out the most to me is a few days before we were getting ready to pull into Israel.
Is that it?
Yeah, everybody on the ship had to go through a class, and it was a couple hours long, and it was how to behave and what to do if somebody threw something into a bus that you're riding. You get on the ground and you cover your head.
Yeah.
What do you do if you see anybody with a gun? You stand back and just don't do a thing. If they're carrying a gun, just assume that they're either the police
IDF
or
or whatever, yeah.
the Israeli military. And even back then, nowadays it's like that here, but women were in combat situations in the military in Israel back in the 1970s, and they would be walking around carrying guns too. So, you know, it's something like you never experienced here in the United States. It's totally different. It's just normal. So
that's one of the things I think I undervalue or don't focus on is a lot of the different experiences I've got are from being abroad. Like you were saying, you can't get that really anywhere else. And a lot of my friends, family, people I've seen growing up haven't grown because they don't experience the stuff outside of what we have here.
Right.
So that stuff really fascinates me, but I never thought about how deep that can go. So I guess, again, I've never thought of
Well, you were
Israel
over
too.
in Middle East.
Kuwait
weren't
and
you?
Iraq, yeah.
Yeah, okay. So, yeah, my brother did a couple tours in Iraq. He did 36 years in the Army. He was a lifer.
Good for
But,
him. 36, goodness. I tried to re-enlist at 6 and they med-stepped me.
they finally made him get out because he was an E8 and he didn't make E9. He wasn't making E9, so that's how it works nowadays.
Yep. Once you get up,
Yeah.
it gets more funneled and limited.
Yeah, so that's, you know, there's all kinds of, every place you go to, I went to, Great Britain owned this little island country out in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, actually just south of the equator, and they were granting their independence, and Princess Margaret was there for this granting, and we were the U.S.
That's
Navy ship that was representing the United States. We were there when
That's such an honor.
that was going
That's
on. Of
wild.
course, she's passed away since then, but that's her sister's been the Queen of England for how many years?
And being able to see the history of that is just,
Yeah.
you know, that's again, that's fascinating to me. That's
So-
like literal history that, you know, you got to take a part of and got to witness.
Oh yeah. I mean, I've been to a lot of interesting places in the world. Every place you go to, every country is a little bit different, and
Some
you
of
have
them are
to
a lot.
educate yourself. You know what it's like to go there. So.
Yeah, Singapore. I remember I didn't get to go. I had to fly back for a court martial, but I heard stories about, like, you know, again, like, you know, something as casual as spitting on the sidewalk or gum, like, is I don't know if it's a felony there, but a jailable offense.
Yep.
And simple stuff like that, you know, like you're saying, like how to react to situations that you don't generally see here. So some of them, it's just like you say, whether it's culture, politics, or whatever at the time, places are so different.
Yeah, I was supposed to go to Singapore, and the United States had just recognized China, the Republic of China. Again, this was back in the late 80s, as a country, which Singapore was like a South Vietnam to North Vietnam. They were a democracy, and of course, they're tiny compared to China that they're part of. And they were protesting against the United States at the time. We got all the way into their harbor, and we finally got orders to turn around and get out of there. So that was my Singapore experience.
This is not much action. If we gotta get out of here.
Yeah, pretty
Wow,
soon
man.
these guys are wanting to come in.
Yeah,
Our color guard has a meeting.
yeah.
So anyways, I was one of the fortunate ones. I went in at the tail end, and I didn't, the closest thing to action I saw was a failed rescue attempt in Iran back in 1980. I was in the Persian Gulf on a ship, lit up, taunting, just like you were talking about. We wanted their attention on us and not on the planes that were in the air landing in the desert. So.
Yeah, some things never change, I guess.
Yeah.
It's funny. I do have like I said, these are just general questions I ask, and they're more vague and broad, but like, what do you want, or is there anything you want to tell younger people just about serving the country? What, you know, good, bad things to look out for, reasons to, reasons not to. Ray, for example, his philosophy is go to the Air Force or Navy because they give you the best bonuses, you know, so, but I just, you know.
And we eat better, so.
Gosh, yep.
I like to go back to what I thought of when I was joining the military. And I graduated from high school, and I went to work in a factory, buffing chrome bumpers. I worked there for 2 weeks and said, I can't do this for the rest of my life. So I went to a recruiter, and I asked them, what kind of jobs can you give me in training in the Navy that can give me some kind of job opportunities when I get out of the Navy?
Most people
And
don't do
that's
that.
what I did. And I got out of the Navy, went right to work for an aerospace company, went to college, got a bachelor's
So
degree
many
in
Marines in
computer
the Wing
science.
do that, yep.
You know, and that's very important. To me, that's
Thinking
do
beforehand.
something that will benefit you when you get out in the civilian world.
Marketability.
Yeah.
All the people I know who got out and just have excelled a million degrees have been air wing guys who they go work for Boeing, Delta, all that. So I don't have anything else if they're in a hurry. Do you have any questions or anything for other people, for other veterans, people who,
No, I'm part of this chapter here. We talk about stuff like this all the time. So, and like you said, they go to work for Boeing, etc. And that's what I did. I got out of the Navy. I was surface-to-air missile systems, and I went to work for an aerospace company in Southern California called Hughes Aircraft Company. And they hired me because they were developing all these systems called air defense ground environment. And what they are is your radar systems that will detect incoming aircraft and missiles, enemy aircraft and missiles, and then you would have a missile battery assigned to intercept them. Well, what's the difference between what I did and what that was? We were sea-based, so we were moving around and pitching and rolling, and this stuff is on the land in one general location. Well, I knew every aspect about that, so for the first 4 years I was in, I went through all these foreign projects, including the Joint Surveillance System, which is the United States and Canada, doing that. Then we started developing air traffic control systems. I was in college this whole time. Well, what's an air traffic control system? It's an air defense ground environment system without the missile batteries. It's the same thing. So I had, the whole time I went to college, I was benefiting and working in an aerospace company with what I learned in the military, and then I went to college on full scholarship from them. They paid for my whole education.
That's wonderful.
So that's something I like to pass on.
All right. Well, Murph, is there anything else you wanted to say? Or I always kind of ask, is there any question that you, if I talk to you in the future, if anyone else that you ever would want them to ask, that they kind of overlook, or just anything like that?
Not really. I didn't know what to expect when we started here. Most of the time when they want to interview somebody here, they want to interview somebody with boots on the ground combat experience, which I did not have since I went in so late. As far as
heroes have so many different forms. I never look at that. And heroes all have their stories. I said I don't want to make it about it. I want to come out here and I say whether it's about if people want to talk about the fact that they just love their grandkids now. You know what I'm saying? And some may be happy they're out, that the military's passed, and it's just one thing that now they use it as a lesson and experience, and that's it. I just want to give everyone the chance to
right.
Put
Anybody that's part of this organization, the military has not passed them. They're still grasping it, and some in a good way, and some not in a good way, and I happen to be in a good way as far as that goes.
Awesome. Well, Murph, thank you.
You're welcome.
If you ever want to sit back again, talk, whatever, reach out. And
thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I know they're trying to get us out of here.